Christina. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Those who are joining us for our Global Chamber Author Series. We are always ecstatic to have you with us on the third Thursday of every month. So most of you have it marked on your calendar. Some of you look for an invite, which we certainly don't mind, and even a little reminder. But I would like to remind you that this event occurring on a monthly basis is for you. It's to engage with purpose. And our Globinar, for our author series for Global Chamber, we are engaging with you again today. And we come with a workshop on 1 month and the subsequent month panel of authors, Global Chamber authors generally. And what we do, we show up as a vibrant community of writers worldwide. And whether you're an aspiring writer or you're already a published author, and here we're going to connect. You're going to have diverse experiences. You should be inspired through books to write a book or collaborate with books and through workshops, projects, leadership, and initiatives. So you are in the right place. And a greetings to you. Welcome, Terry. Welcome, bienvenue. I would like for you to also, in the chat, place your name, your contact information, because that's part of the engagement. And this program began over 3.5 years ago, Global Chamber Author Series, and it was began by Gloria Peterson, and we have the honor of having her with us this month. She's normally with us every month, but I know she made a move, and so she's back on board. And she started this program engaging authors and to discover that Global Chamber had well over 100 published authors in our mix, which is not a surprise because we are Global Chamber and we are in 550 metros and growing around the world. This is who I am. My name is Dana, Dr. Dana Austin. I head up the Global Chamber for Atlanta. I also am the CEO and founder of our Transformational Writers Academy. There's a lot of things, but the most important, I would say, is I'm a connector. I love connecting people. And I love when people are able to birth their books or do collaborations on a book, workshops, discussions. I've been to 2 book signings in the last 2 weeks, one in Bermuda and one here in Atlanta. That's because I like to support others. I like to engage. And so here's who we are as Global Chamber. We are the first and only global chamber of commerce located in hundreds of metros around the world, 550 metros and growing. But most of you knew that. For those of you who didn't, we are present. We have a presence. And our mission is to accelerate cross-border trade and investments in every region of the world. And how do we do that? We engage people like you. We engage top executives and leaders through warm connection, timely information, through our meetups, through our Globinars, because our vision is to create a world where it's just as easy growing across regions as easy selling across the street. Now, I could say that with my eyes closed, but I always like to read it because it just keeps me on point. So this is who we are. And that one of the components of what we do for Global Chamber is the Global Chamber Author Series. Where is Global Chamber located? Well, our headquarters is in Phoenix, Arizona at the Thunderbird School of Global Management. Yes, we are in a leading institution as a leader in our own right. And Thunderbird has 30 locations around the globe. So as members, as paid members of Global Chamber, as sponsors, you also have access to the Thunderbird connections. Isn't that great? Yes. Now, because this is going to be an engaging author series, as it normally is, I think I'm going to start off with the most obvious, which is to have you put your name and your link and the contacts. And I see some of you have already started that. So welcome. Welcome, Terry. Welcome, Gloria, our founder for Global Chamber Author Series. Welcome, Mark. Welcome, Gary. Welcome, Jennifer. We are ecstatic to have you. And Terry Morrison's one of our authors as well. We're going to have to pull her back in on one of our panels coming up. What's that? And
So how are
welcome,
you feeling today?
I am well. Thank you for asking. I'm ecstatic to be more precise, because anytime I get a chance to come here and be a part of engaging and in connecting, I'm always doing well. So today we have a special treat. Are you guys ready? So this is part of the engagement. In your chat, we're going to use that in terms of engagement. So if you are ready to learn who our workshop presenter is today for our Global Chamber Author Series, in your chat, type number 1. I need to see ones going up there before I actually introduce him. We want to be engaged, present, and getting all that we're offering today. Okay, I'm seeing ones. You're ready, Jim. You're ready, Gloria. You're ready, Terry. Yes. You know what? I'm gonna put my one in there too, because I'm ready as well. Yes, Gary. Oh, let me introduce you to a Global Chamber member, business owner, an incredible man with a world reach that really makes him such a great alignment for Global Chamber. And that's none other than Philip Auerbach. Philip Auerbach is the CEO and founder of Auerbach International. And today he's going to be presenting on languages and the impact of translating your book or books. And we also happen to have other Global Chamber members on that have translated their books. So we're going to talk about that. And so he is an expert in cross-cultural marketing and translation. And Philip shares insight from his upcoming anthology. Now you're saying, oh, he's going to be in an anthology? Yes. Global Chamber, what we're doing is, Transformational Writers Academy, we're putting together an anthology for business owners, because what we've discovered is that some people want to write an actual book and be just they're the sole contributor, and some want to contribute to an anthology, and they're published authors as well. So Philip just learned yesterday that he's going to be a part of our upcoming anthology. We're starting that program in August. I'll talk to you more about that later, guys. But also, global marketing is his expertise. This is what he studied. And he's going to provide practical strategies for success and his experience in helping organizations connect in their native tongues with audiences around the world. I'm excited. So, Philip, we want to welcome you. Come on board.
Thank you, Dana. Can you see me and hear me?
I am going to let me stop my share.
There we go.
And I don't see you yet. If you say something, you should show up. There you are.
There. Sorry.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I was having technical difficulties this morning, and I'm recovering from being congested. So if I sound like a frog, that's because I still sound like one. And that's
Well, you're here, you're visible, and you know what? Everyone is here. Whether you sound like a frog or not, we are going to engage and have an incredible time. So I just love your logo, Auerbach with the globe behind it is so fitting for what you do and also for our organization. So why don't you tell us about Auerbach International first, and then we can jump off into our workshop.
Well, my company, Auerbach International, basically facilitates communication around the world and expands business opportunities around the world. And we do this by putting any kind of content that you may have into 120 major world languages with accuracy and precision. And that's very critical, as I will demonstrate during our talk.
Yes.
And basically, in doing this, again, we expand business opportunities worldwide. We've been doing this for over 35 years, making us, as far as I know, the oldest continual language agency in the country, if not the world, under the same management, which is why I'm gray. So.
Well, 35 years is a long time to be doing excellence in the world of translation, more importantly, accuracy and precision. And I know that whenever we write or speak, and if there's an interpreter or a translator, or if you're interpreting yourself, we want it to be translated accurately. And so that is a business that will be around because we have such a diverse world, languages, and cultures. So we're ecstatic about that. Now, I know you had a question that you wanted to ask of the audience to kind of just jump out the gate with the survey. So you go ahead and ask it, and I'll type it in the chat.
Okay. First of all, I should also add that since we've been doing this for effectively 35 years, we do every subject imaginable from aerospace to zoology. And in terms of authors, we've done children's books and philosophy and business and every subject in between. And we go in both directions, English to other languages into English. So the question I wanted to ask everyone to start is what percent of the world do you think speaks English either as a primary language, as in the United States, or as a secondary language, as in India, Nigeria, and the Philippines? What percentage of the world speaks English?
And I have that question right there in the chat. Feel free to respond audibly or type it in the chat for us. We've got one response. So the first one is Dr. Christina Watcher. She's one of our published authors and Global Chamber members from the West Coast. She says 23%. Okay.
Any other guesses quickly? 35%?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Gary says 35.
Okay, so we don't have many curious people or people who like to just speculate, so I will tell you the answer.
Hold on. We got one hand raised. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I said
She's our Global
45.
Chamber leader.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Stephanie Austin's our Global Chamber leader out of Dallas, Texas. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Say 45%.
Okay.
45? Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Very quickly, any other guesses? Okay, so the accurate answer, which truly surprised me, is 17%. So let's round it up to 20%, which means that 80% of the world does not speak English. So another quick question. How many, in this country, we've got around 64 million Latinos making, well, that's a separate issue, 64 million Latinos. Of that 64 million, how many millions speak Spanish at home? Any quick guesses?
I'm going to go 60%.
60%, 95%?
Christina says 95.
Okay, we don't seem to have a very curious, or at least a speculative audience.
Yeah, they're just looking for their keyboards. They're like, okay, do I speak it or do I type it? Because here they are. 20%, 70%, 60%.
Okay. The correct answer, I
10%.
don't know the percentage of
80%.
but the correct answer is around 42 million. So 42 million US Latinos speak Spanish at home, making the US the second largest Spanish country outside of Mexico. So again, that's a huge domestic audience as well as the 80% international audience. And a final question for all of you. What percent of world internet users will only buy your product or service if it is presented in their native language? What percent of world internet users will only buy your product or service if it is presented in their native language?
Oh, that's going to be a good one to see. So you've got a product, guys.
60%.
80?
60.
50?
Stephanie says 60, 50, 80. I think it's up there too. I happen to know though.
It's actually lower than what you guessed, but very good guesses. The correct answer is around 60%, which is still very high considering the entire world. So effectively what that means is that, again, around 42 million people, US Latinos, speak Spanish at home. Around 80% of the world does not speak English, and 60% of world internet users will only buy from you if your information is presented to them in their native language, which means that if you want to increase your impact, if you want to magnify your influence, and if you want to broaden your reach, one of the best ways to do it is to present your books, your websites, your videos, your courses, your social media in other languages besides just English. So this obviously is a way to grow. Now, a lot of people assume that they can translate their books using AI. And that's a very valid assumption, but it's a very incorrect assumption if, and a very qualified if you value accuracy, precision, and cultural adaptation. So translating your books through AI can be done, or it can be done accurately. So again, if you want it done, then obviously, AI works. If you want it done accurately, there's another step that's involved, and that's where we come in. So as I will illustrate in a moment or two, the way to do any translation, whether it's a book, social media, website, brochure, manual, contract, anything, the way to do any translation accurately is, if possible or if necessary, a combination of AI to start, but absolutely with human professional linguists to edit, verify, proofread, and check that all the nuances are correct. So in our case, the professional linguists we use have at least 10 years ongoing experience in the field, which means they are not part-time professors, they are not amateurs, they're not your cousin who used to live in that country for 5 years and has come home, because those people usually do not speak nuances and expressions correctly. They must be native speakers of the target language, which means the language it's going into. They must have professional training as translators or interpreters, and I will distinguish those in a moment. And they must speak your subject terminology, which is very critical. So for example, as most of you know, each industry has its own vocabulary. If you buy a house, people will talk to you about points and mortgages and home equity loans and so forth. If you talk about software or law or any other fields, there's special vocabulary. So the linguists we use must speak the subject terminology of whatever you are writing about. If it's general, that's fine, but if it's something about, again, philosophy or chemistry, whatever, then obviously they must speak those subjects. Now, a very critical distinction, most people do not know this. Very quickly, put in the chat, please. Translation deals with what kind of communication, and interpreting deals with what kind of communication. Very critical words that most people are not aware of the distinctions. Very good. Written. Yes, so very simply, the word translating means to convert anything written into another language. The word interpreting means to convert anything spoken into another language. Spoken means meetings, conferences, phone calls, for example. Again, most people mix up the terms, use them interchangeably, but they are not interchangeable in our world. Now, again, one of the issues that AI does not do well or does not do properly is to convert imperial to metric. So for example, if you've got a sentence in your books saying that the building was 8 miles away from here, if you put that into AI or into Google Translate, which is the most common program, you will get a literal translation of the building was 8 miles away, which is fine if you're in the United States. But if you're in most of the world, it does not convert to 12.8 kilometers, very critical. If you say something costs $100, you put that in Google Translate or AI, and it will literally translate $100, not, for example, 89 euros. That's a critical issue of acculturation or cultural adaptation, which is obviously what we do as as professional linguists. So these are very simple examples of what AI by itself does not do. Now, if you know what questions to ask AI, it will generally give you the proper answers. But most authors are not aware of these translation issues, so they don't know what questions to ask, which is why you need companies like ours to have the professional linguists do an editing to make sure it's done correctly. As another very simple example, if you put in Google Translate the sentence, my son or my daughter plays soccer, you will get a translation into most languages, my son or daughter plays football, because that is the proper translation in other languages. But as we all know, what the game that we play in the United States, the rest of the world calls American football, and we call soccer. But in most AI programs, especially Google Translate, our game is el fútbol, their game is el fútbol. There's no distinction. That's, again, not correct, not correct adaptation, cultural adaptation.
You know, we
Yes.
have to be unique in the United States.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we think that we're very special in many ways. We are, but we impose our uniqueness on other parts of the world, shall we say politely. Let me give you another very interesting example that most people don't think about. A Danish friend wrote to me this wonderful sentence: "The chairman of IKEA and I went out for a walk to pick up some fags." Now, very quickly, those of you who are not shocked by that, what do you think that means? The chairman of IKEA and I went out for a walk to pick up some fags.
Mm. Okay, unmute yourselves. Let us know what you think the interpretation of that means.
Very good. Prostitutes, very good. Any other guesses? Come on, this group, you're authors, you need to be creative. Okay, so the word fag, and this is a word that actually does translate properly in Google Translate, because it's a British English word which simply means cigarettes. So nobody wins the packet of Marlboros. But yes, so fag in British English means cigarettes. So if you do mean it in the American sense, again, this is where the editing comes in, that you have to translate from British English into American English. If you put in the simple sentence, I did this yesterday, had a phrase, hardworking Brits, British people, hardworking Brits. Google Translate did it backwards, Britannique travailleurs, which is basically means British workers, except that the grammar is wrong. The adjective goes behind the word, not in front of the noun. Another example of why that's wrong. Another great example, if you try to translate the word tumble, a wonderful Spanish word, and try to translate that through AI, you can get you get a primary meaning, but there are actually three different meanings that I'm aware of, and other people may know others. And does anyone who speaks Spanish know what the word tambo means? T-A-M-B-O. No guesses.
I didn't hear that. I had not heard of it until you mentioned that word yesterday. So we're waiting for you. We're waiting with bated breath.
Okay. So I think, now I'm going to get the countries wrong, so I'm not even going to state the countries. But the most common word is, it's a kind of a basket, but if you put it in Google Translate, it comes out as dairy farm. And in some countries, it's a slang word for a whorehouse. Wonderful. So therefore, this is why you have to be very careful to even know the dialect or the culture that you're targeting, because especially in Spanish, the language is used differently. Just as we saw in American English, the words are used differently. So now you may be, so it may, well, again, it may mean a dairy farm, but if you're truly right, you're creative authors. So if you're truly writing about, people in the tambo, and it comes out as dairy cows, you may actually mean very pejoratively, fat women in the whorehouse, cows in the whorehouse. But that's
with a fag.
With the fags, right? So you therefore, this is why you need the human editors to interact with you, the authors, to ask you questions. What does it mean in this context? AI is not going to ask you. It may guess what it means in that context, but it's not going to ask you. So another very simple word. In English, we can easily, in English and Western languages, we can say your brother or your sister. And, that's perfectly reasonable. But in East Asian languages, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, there's no such word for brother, there's no such word for sister, because you must distinguish in those languages between older brother, older sister, younger sister. And my first question, my first reaction when I first heard this, when I first learned this, was yes, but what if you're born a twin? The one who comes out first is the older, the one who comes out second is the younger. Very simple. So,
Yeah.
so if you, again, if you use any kind of AI program, it's going to assume you mean one thing, but it may mean something totally, you may intend something totally different.
And Philip, I don't know if you noticed, there's a few comments in the chat about that very same, those examples that you shared. Gloria mentioned the automaker who made the vehicle Nova.
Ah, yes,
And
Gloria, thank you so much for suggesting that. That actually is the biggest myth in the language industry that actually did not happen. I think Chevrolet invented the Nova. They sent it to, the idea is they sent it to Mexico, where Nova in Spanish means does not go. Wonderful name for a car, except that actually did not happen. There are other issues that did happen, where I think it was in the 1970s, we had in this country a car called the Pinto, I think made by American Motors. They marketed in Brazil, totally oblivious to the fact that Pinto in Brazilian Portuguese is, shall we say, shrunken male genitals.
oh my.
Not the best name for it.
Where are we going today? We've got the fags and the whorehouse and shrunken male genitals. I mean, if you guys are not in this room, you're missing out.
So that's another issue that we ourselves do, that you as authors need to be mindful of. If you're translating your company name, if you have a company name, your book title, your tagline, anything about yourself in other languages, please ask us or ask a language agency to check it out first in 10 major languages to ensure that it is not pejorative, that it is neutral, at least neutral or beneficial, at least positive in other languages, but certainly not offensive in other languages.
Absolutely.
Again, very simple sentence. My friend and I walked to the station. Seems very simple in English, but in other languages, you have to distinguish. There's no such word as station. Do you mean train station, subway station, or perhaps a police station? Very different words. So these are examples of why you need a professional language agency to help you. Another example very quickly, and this is very, very common, the word you or your. In English, we have one word for that, except in what is grammatically called the reflexive pronoun, which is yourself or yourselves. That's the only time in English we distinguish singular or plural. But as most of you know because you've studied, hopefully you've studied other languages in high school, there's no simple word for you or your. It can be singular, it can be plural, it can be formal, it can be informal, it can be masculine, it can be feminine, it can be a combination. So if I'm talking about you and I'm referring to, a group of women, if the AI uses the masculine singular pronoun, obviously that's very wrong. So again, this is why you need human professional linguists to edit, to distinguish, and to make sure that your translations are done correctly. Now, as authors, besides your written book, your written website, your podcasts, and I'm sorry, your social media and so forth, there are other ways that you can gain revenue from overseas audiences, and that is potentially to do podcasts and to do consulting assignments. And one way to get consulting assignments is to appear in public, to appear, such as this in a live webinar. And your immediate question should be, or normally would be, I don't speak other languages. How do I communicate? And by the way, if the only way to do AI and to do it correctly is if you are a native speaker of that target language. So if you speak fluent Greek, if as a native speaker, or your Korean is native level, then if you translate your book into those languages, you yourself can check it to ensure that it's accurate. But unless you are a native speaker, That's why you need a professional linguist who speaks that target language and has these other qualifications of, again, 10 years speaking the subject terminology and trained as a professional translator or interpreter. Now, again, if you want to present in other languages, there are ways to do that. One way is if you need to speak to someone in another country and you don't, and again, that person's English is limited or doesn't speak English at all, we have a service called OPI, over the phone interpreting. This works 24/7, 365, 24/7 in over 100 languages, where we connect you automatically within seconds to a telephone interpreter. And so you have a three-way conversation. You, your overseas party, you, the interpreter, your overseas party, the interpreter back to you in a consecutive interpretation. This costs around $1 per minute. It depends on circumstances, but around $1 per minute. You pay as you go. There's no subscription, no usage, there's no billing. It's there if you need it. Very convenient, very simple, a way to communicate with people abroad. Now,
can I interject real quick? I'm sorry, Philip. I know you've got a rhythm, but I like to switch it up a little bit so that people are hearing a little bit of different voices and can ask questions.
Sure.
With that over the phone interpretation, so my background is my profession is a healthcare provider. And so we often use that system in the hospital for translation, because as you can imagine, when you are having a conversation or questions translated from provider to patient and vice versa, you want to make sure that, as you said in the beginning, that there's accuracy there and there's precision and there's cultural awareness. And so if someone is having a removal of a body part, you want to make sure that that's translated accurately and then that they're understanding it. So family members often come in, children in particular, serve as translators when older adults go to the hospital or doctor's office, and they serve as a translator. But you can imagine that children's vocabulary is not quite as extensive as most adults, and neither is it specific to medical, to the field itself. So I really wanted to just put that out there, because I'm sure there's some folks here in the room, or those who are listening even in replay, that have had that experience, because we have several languages right here in this room even. So can you just speak to that a little bit more? And I know I've shifted you a little bit, but I had to interject that since you're talking about OPI, over the phone interpretation.
So first of all, and I'm delighted you raised that issue. Thank you, Dana. So first of all, hospitals in the United States must, by law, have an OPI system, because by law, they may not any longer rely on family members or children to interpret medical issues to the non-speaking immigrant. Because, for example, the doctor doesn't want to tell the patient and ask the 10-year-old child to tell the mother, you have cancer. It's obviously much too shocking, even if the child knows the word for it, or you have cirrhosis of the liver or something. Again, children don't, normal English speakers don't know those terms in other languages. So hospitals must use OPI systems. But you raised a very good point, an example that I like to use. The Mexican immigrant mother took her son to the emergency room. She did not speak English, took her son to the emergency room. And again, this is a chat for everyone. Please put in the chat the answer to this. And this is something that everyone should be able to do very quickly. Told the doctors that her son was intoxicado. So what does that sound like? Very quickly, intoxicado in English sounds like what?
Inebriated. Drunk.
Inebriated, right.
Inebriated.
Except that is the assumption that intoxicado means drunk, but the secondary meaning of the word means food poisoned. So the doctors treated this person for drunkenness, and actually he was food poisoned and he almost died. So this is, again, why you need professional linguists to ask questions, if necessary, to render the correct interpretation of these.
That brings to memory, I remember when I was taking Spanish in high school, you're learning vocabularies, you're incorporating new words and, just courageously jumping out there. And so I thought, let me try this word on for size because I think it's going to be what it sounds like. And I said that I was embarrassed. At least that's what I thought I said. I said, estoy
Right.
embarazada, embarazada. Well, let me tell you, for those of you who don't know, embarazada is not embarrassed, but I was afterwards because it was saying I was pregnant. So I was not embarazada, but I definitely was embarrassed. So knowing and using the right word, the right time, in the right setting is so vital. That's why we're excited and ecstatic to have you here presenting this workshop for these incredible Global Chamber members and guests.
Thank you. So what a wonderful new, Spanish is not one of my studied language. I understand it. I understand written Spanish, but I'm delighted you
Yes.
brought that up. That's great.
Well, one question that's a good segue to interject here is some of the people in the audience are curious because I can tell by the looks on their face that well, those who have their cameras on anyway, they're like, how did Philip get into this? His background that actually brought him to be doing this for 35 years. I see that look on your face, Eric. I see that look on your face, Gloria. And on those still captions, you have the same question. So this is a good time, if you would not mind sharing with us, how did you get into translating, interpreting, doing this for 35 years or more? Tell us
Well,
about your
first of
background.
all, language agencies are called LSPs, language service providers, and most LSP owners, from what I've learned over the years, is that most of us got into this business by total accident. It's not something you grow up with, dreaming one day I'd like to be an LSP owner. So I also got into the business totally by accident. I had a language, I had a consultancy many years ago. And one day, out of the blue, in wonderful English expression, which means by chance, I was approached by a group of translators. They were in a very remote country that most people would never dream of thinking about. And they asked, would my company be interested in marketing them to bring them clients? They could do all the work, they could do all the translations, but could we, do the marketing, bring them the clients, do the accounting, the customer service, the interaction, and so forth. And that's how it started, but it fit with my background because I've studied, I don't know, 7 or 8 languages, some of which I speak much better than others. And I have a master's degree from Thunderbird, as Dana mentioned in the very beginning. It's the primary graduate school in this country for international business. And so my master's was in international marketing. And so I figured, all right, well, this is interesting, combining this group of translators who obviously do languages with my background in languages, with my master's in international business, international outreach. So let's give it a go for a few months, a year, see how it goes. And here we are 35 years later.
Wow, that's incredible. It's incredible. Sometimes you can stumble into your purpose. And we're grateful that you stumbled into yours with your business background and your degree from Thunderbird, because we get the opportunity to benefit from knowledge such as what you're sharing and Globinar such as these, or even meetups. So take it away.
So some other points that I wanted to raise with all of you. We spoke about OPI, over the phone interpreting, as a way to communicate instantly with someone who doesn't speak another language. But the other issue that I wanted to offer to all of you is, again, ways to present podcasts or ways to gain consulting assignments if you don't speak the target language. So there are 2 ways to do it. One is by using a professional interpreter, such as this, through a Zoom call with 2 or 3 ways. So you are presenting, we have a professional interpreter on the call with you, on the screen with you, who can interpret your words into the target language of your audience. That's one way to do it. Another way is that there are many AI programs out there that do perform pretty instant speech translations, so English to translated speech very, very quickly. both written and spoken. Now, as in any AI program, these are not 100% accurate. They may be good enough, but they are not, again, they're not perfect. They're not, they're not precision. But this is certainly a way to present your knowledge to an overseas audience. Again, if it's not super technical, and if again, if precision is not critical. So these three ways, again, OPI for immediate phone conversations, these AI language conversion programs to present, and also if you do want precision and accuracy, to use a professional interpreter on screen with you to render your words. And by the way, that will add, that will double the time. So if you're speaking, well, there are many ways, there are ways to do it consecutively and simultaneously, and I can discuss that with you individually if you'd like. So,
Okay, well, we have a question to piggyback that, and I'd like to raise it just because I know you're in your rhythm, and the chat is very active and engaging. Are captions an option for podcasts when language is a concern? Are captions a possibility for podcasts when language is a concern?
captions.
Like the text at the bottom.
Oh, well, that's subtitling.
Mhm.
There's a word for captions, which is what sometimes you see on closed screen television. So, for
Mhm.
example, if you want the captions in Spanish or in English for a TV show, that is captions. That's not something that our company does. But if you mean, from movies, if you mean subtitling, which are the words at the bottom of the frames, that are going through, or if you mean dubbing, which is the replacement of the words in a movie or in a film, for example, that is something that we can do. So I'm sorry, so what was the exact question? Did I answer it sufficiently there? Okay, I assume so. But so again, for movies, anything for films or films or movies or yeah, those are the main things. We can easily provide subtitles, or we can provide dubbing. We can provide dubbing or voiceovers. The words do have there's a distinction between the two meanings, voiceovers and dubbing, but again, most people combine the two. But we can provide subtitles or dubbing for any films or movies or social media courses or e-learning courses that you may have. Any other questions?
Thank you for that, Philip. We're learning quite a bit, and that's why we're here. Dubbing versus voiceover versus subtitles, translation versus interpretation. And we do have a question. Christina, Dr. Christina Wachter. Go right ahead, Christina. Unmute yourself, though.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, this is great stuff, Philip. I really am intrigued by this whole process. I wonder more about your process, though. Could you please explain a little bit more about marketing once the books have been translated?
The marketing is a totally separate issue, something we can potentially help with. We do have a global marketing division, shall we say. But the easiest answer is it depends. It depends on a lot of factors. Who is your target audience? What's your target country? What is your capability in marketing? Do you know of, or do your authors have contacts, for example, in groups, or in groups is the wrong word. Why am I having a mental blank? Something like the Global Chamber. Do you have certain affinity groups, or do you have certain specialty groups that you're a part of that can help market your book for you? Can you do social media to market your book? And again, this is, for example, by translating the book title, having keywords, and putting your social media in other languages.
So that's something that you actually do? You put the social media into other languages as well?
Yes, we can easily translate your social media into other languages, and uh, and your book title, by the way, in other languages may be very, very different. For example, we just recently translated for a Costa Rican author. His Spanish book was called Ingravidez, which means weightlessness. We translated it from Spanish to English and acculturated it, which was very critical. And in English, it will appear in the title of Crisis of Gravity. Very different.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
because weightlessness in English had a very different nuance, or again, depending on, it was a nuance because it wasn't quite what the book was about. It was more of a crisis of gravity. So in any case, yeah, so we can help with the marketing, but there are many factors that go into it in terms of again, affinity groups. That was the word I was looking for. Affinity groups you may be part of, or subject groups. Again, if your book is about real estate, well, that's very different than if it's a novel.
Mhm.
Relations with publishers internationally, again, there are many different factors involved.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Christina. Philip, I wanted to be mindful of the time so that if you want to cover one or two more aspects in the next 3 or 4 minutes, because we want to allow time for a few questions, and then for Cesar or Doug, our leaders, to comment as well. So I know we were going to touch on the podcast, and then you mentioned marketing. Christina brought that up, and consulting.
Yes.
Can you speak to that?
Well, first of all, if Doug or Cesar are on the call, then I have to pretend that I'm much more intelligent than I am. So hopefully I've baffled them, which I hope I've done.
You got us all. We're believers.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So yeah, basically just as a summary, again, most of the world does not speak English. So if you're looking to make an impact in the world, this is translating your book and appearing on podcasts or on webinars or in conferences, either in person or remotely, is a way that we can empower you to do this. And in essence, as authors, you write books partially for ego, but also to really expand your impact. And that's really what we do. We expand companies or individuals' impact in the world, expand your communication with other cultures, such as Latinos, Arabs, Filipinos, Russians, and so forth within this country, and also increasing global business opportunities. So again, depending on what your book is about, depending on what your expertise is about, you may be writing a book really to increase business opportunities more than just conveying knowledge opportunities. And all of this, what we've been speaking about, is a way for you to do that. And yes. I'll end with another very simple example that our own translations save lives. And I'd like to use the example that we translate, in addition to for individuals and for companies and Fortune 100 companies, we translate for a lot of government agencies. One of our clients is the California Department of Motor Vehicles. And I can very proudly say that we translate all of the DMV manuals for all of the immigrants in California. So like 23, I think it's like 25 or 30 immigrant groups. So all of the instruction manuals about driving rules of the road and so forth, and all of the tests, the written tests, we translate into immigrant languages. So I can very proudly say that if you are driving in California and you are not hit by an immigrant, that is partially because of us. So you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I lived in California for a few years, so I have you partially to thank.
Yes.
That I live to tell the story. Philip, we want to thank you today. I mean, how impressive is it that within our sphere, our global chamber sphere, we have so much expertise, and for you to be able to share what you do for Auerbach, for business owners, for authors, to help translate manuals, standard operating procedures, conversations, books. Books, and we have some authors in our space here today that have actually translated their books into other languages. So this is a segue for me to let you know that next month's Global Chamber Author Series, we're going to have Gloria Peterson as one of our guest panelists and talking about her process for translating her book. And then we'll have another. That will be a surprise, which means it's still a surprise to me. We did have Nacho Vilac on the month prior, and he's out of Spain, so he's had his book translated in multiple languages, but we would like to mix it up. So if any of you have your books in other languages and you are a member of Global Chamber and like to be a part of our panel next month, we are extending that invitation to us. Reach out to myself, reach out to Gloria, reach out to Christina, let us know. And Philip, we are ecstatic. I see, there you go. His contact information is right there in the chat, guys. Copy it, take a picture of it, or with those three dots at the bottom of your Zoom, if you click on it, you can say save chat. Save chat. All right, Gloria, you have a question. Please join.
Yes, I would like Terry Morrison to join me next month on that panel.
Yes. Come on, Terry.
And
oh, that's so sweet of you. Thank you. I'll try and make it. I would like to offer that I'm very interested in the audio side of the translations now, because we're going to have Kiss Bauer Shake Hands will be my first audiobook this fall. It'll be released by Echo Point Books. So I think the discussion also is interesting between AI and actual physical narrators, whether they're speaking in Spanish or they're doing a Google Translate. I think there's a lot of controversy. It's an interesting subject, and everybody has a point of view.
That's a great point. And perhaps next month, when you're facilitating, Terry, that we can.
Gloria's running it. Gloria's doing it.
Well, Gloria's she's gonna be a guest as well, so she can't, hold the mic here and here. So, but we'd like for you to be a part of that.
Yeah.
She would, and so would we. And maybe we can explore the other author to be one who had translated their book, but also has it in audio as well. So that's, the needle in the haystack gets a little deeper, but let's look for that. And if any of you know someone in that space that can be a guest along with Gloria next month, and Terry as our facilitator and me as a supporter, we'd love it.
I'd be honored. I'd be very honored.
Thank you so much. In this room, I put it in the chat, but we have, I'm sorry, we have cultural ambassadors in this room. We have Terry Morrison, we have Christina Wachter, we have Terry Green, we have, just protocol experts in this room, and so much more. We have writing coaches. So I'm going to do a little plug too. I've been plugging everybody else, so let me plug too. So in August, we're starting our next 90 Days to Manuscript Masterclass. Start August 7th, finish October 31st. So what a gift for Halloween, right? Your manuscript completed. And then in the next month, we will be starting our anthology. So these are for people right here in this room who want to contribute to a business anthology in your area of expertise. So we're going to add languages and interpretation to that. And Philip will be a part of that. Then let me know. You can find me on LinkedIn or Transformation Writers Academy across any of the social medias. And so we will let you tie up the comments, Philip, and then Cesar or Doug close us out.
Well, I just wanted to add for the person who was talking about her audio course, if you as authors have audio courses or e-learning courses, this is another aspect where we can expand your impact by translating them into hundreds of languages.
Absolutely.
And the wonderful news is that they are not subject to tariffs. So They, they transmit and you charge your price and no tariff. It's great.
That'll be a path I'm going down soon too. Says my LinkedIn is not working. Cesar or Doug, would you like to come on and closing remarks? Cesar Trabanco is our Vice
Hi.
President.
Hi, Dana. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. No, I just want to say thank you to Philip. Philip, this is something that's very interesting, and I started my career translating. So I was an intern in an organization, and it was all about trade and business. But I was the one who spoke Spanish, and so you're the translator. And I think that's one of the big mistakes that companies do, because I mean, speaking or knowing a language doesn't really make me a translator, and especially when it comes to Spanish, which is so broad, and so that's why I really respect translators, and they give the importance that comes to it. So I just wanted to mention that, Dana, and thanks again, Philip, for your presentation.
Thank you. And Cesar, you raised a superb issue, which is that this is a huge myth that if a person can speak a language even as a native, as Cesar is from Puerto Rico, that makes the person a translator or interpreter. Absolutely not. It requires very specialized training. And Cesar, did you know the word tambo in Spanish?
Tambo? Not really.
No, okay. So that's it.
Yeah.
That also illustrates the point.
Yeah, no, and in my
Yes.
case, actually, being from Puerto Rico is not really, it's far from being the best Spanish.
Right,
so,
exactly.
so
You've
that's,
got
that was a mistake
variation.
that the organization had by them, because it's not really like, if you're targeting the Mexican, Argentinian, this is a whole different world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Thank you, Cesar. Thank you, Philip. And as Philip mentioned throughout the workshop today, if you're looking for accuracy, precision, and cultural adaptation in your translated works or your business or conversation, Auerbach International, the link is there. Follow that. And next month, as I mentioned, we're having Terry Morrison as our facilitator, Gloria Peterson, one of our guest authors who's translated her latest book, from English to Spanish. And then she's also featured in our newsletter that came out last night, Story Lane. So I'll post that online as well. And then the following month, we will have Ask the Coach and Ask the Authors, questions that you want to ask myself as a writer's coach, but also published authors about their journey, because everybody's journey different. And I know some of the questions that have come up in previous Global Chamber Author Series in the first year is, what inspired you? And that's a question, I didn't get to that yet, but we will next month. What inspired you to write? And as Philip was saying, some people write for, to make themselves known. I can't think of the word for that. Or, legacy. Some people write because they're the expert in that field, or just to record history. Whatever the reason, what I say is write on. We thank you for joining us. We look forward to you joining us next month, third Wednesday of the month, 11 o'clock. We're still doing 11 o'clock. Towards the end of the year, we're going to do some 8 a.m.s so that we can get people around the world live. All right. We look forward to seeing you guys soon. Have a great day.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Merci. Gracias. Domo arigato.
どうもありがとうございました。